Like Davin said before, my organization is the male counterpart to Moving Young Girls. It is a program called Boyz in Motion, and it's at Langston Middle School. It's an after-school program that was created in 2008. And just from the title itself, I was really troubled by the fact that it was a space just for guys. I was like, whoa, this is kind of like reinforcing gender norms or something. You know, it's like creating a gendered space. I was worried. It's like, what are we teaching these young boys? And this is out of that problem. That's where my project was born. So my answer to that, after all this semester I've spent there, has been to actually appreciate that gendered space as a strategy. So a gendered space like Boyz in Motion can actually act as a site of liberation from hegemonic constructions of masculinity. If its directors, the mentors, like I myself was and still am, if they facilitate mentees' experiences of embodiment. So, how is Boyz in Motion in gendered space? Well, it's kind of obvious, right? It's Boyz in Motion. But just add a little bit more onto that, it's never, even the young woman who founded it, Allegra Fonda Bernardi, you might know her. She's class 2011. It's not exclusive. It doesn't state that it's solely male and, those who can be read as female, because you have to kind of go off of physical appearance, cannot be admitted into the program. It's just, it tends to foreground the needs of those who identify as male. So while you can have, Allegra herself was a mentor, she really advocated for the fact that there should be more male mentors or male-identified mentors, and the program should really seek to recruit male-identified mentees. Okay. So now I want to go through 3 examples of how Boyz in Motion served as a space in which these young boys could contest hegemonic masculinity. So I think that what makes Boyz in Motion so great is that it brings the issue of gender on a more conscious level. I think in many ways it can be taken for granted. But by creating a space in which you're like, this is specifically for boys, you have an opportunity at that point to talk about gender. Rather than, let's say, we're having an after-school reading program, and you're like, hey guys, what do you think it means to be a boy? It seems kind of like random. But if it's a Boyz in Motion program, it seems more acceptable to be like, so what does it mean to be in this program? What does it mean to be a boy in motion? What does it mean to be a boy? And so I think that was really helpful. And so, for instance, just to give you an example, I also mentor a young boy in elementary school, a Prospect. And unless gender is brought to the forefront, the conversations have a hard time of happening. So I painted my nails, and that led us to have a conversation about gender. Whereas otherwise, I was just giving him math tutoring. We would never have really talked about it unless maybe I spent more and more time with him and we could talk about things that personal. But when I painted my nails and he was like, oh, that's girly, I was like, okay, Dante, so what does it mean to be a girl? So we can and Boyz in Motion is great in that it allows that. But I think what's really important though is that it could be like the Boy Scouts too. That has boy in the title too. It's catered to boys, but the mentors also have to be conscious of gender and the conversations they can now have around gender now that it's kind of brought up into the forefront of conversation. So we had to, I think most mentors even the space itself, even if I noticed most of the mentors other than myself weren't interested in talking about gender all the time, they were forced to think about it more as mentors because of their association with the program. So we were trying to recruit boys after school, and we'd be like, hey, come to Boyz in Motion. They're like, ha ha ha, I'm not going to that. Or, we had one kid who was part of the group, and for instance, he was with the cool guys. I'll call them the cool guys. We can go on about what that means, but you guys have been in school, you probably have an idea. So they were he was with the cool guys, but he was originally one of Boyz in Motion. I was like, let's go. Boyz in Motion's about to start, and one of his friends was like, oh, you're in Boyz in Motion, and I couldn't quite hear, but I believe he called him a homo thug. I'm not sure why. And then he was like, no. He was like, oh, no, I'm going to stay with my friends today. And I was like, okay. But at that moment, as a mentor, even if I wasn't willing to think about gender, I was like, well, there's obviously, when I'm presenting this program, I'm going to have to think how I can reach out to these boys because they're right now feeling very insecure about masculinity. They feel like they have to perform all the time, and Boyz in Motion may be something that seems too queer. So how can we target them so that it seems like they can come and still, keep their manhood intact? So create a space in which gender is explicit and have mentors who are willing to not only be pushed to think about it, but actually think about it more and engage with it and see it not as just an inconvenience, but as something that needs to be worked through. But what about the participants themselves? And this is what's more interesting to me. How can we help them challenge this feeling that they have to perform manhood, in certain ways, otherwise be destined for shame in the school hallways? Mm. And I think, and this is why I really love Julie's presentation. I am looking at her. And we have a lot to talk about. So, movement. There's something about movement and fun movement. I'm going to just term it fun movement. That Boyz in Motion help boys challenge these ideas of hegemonic masculinity by allowing them to engage in fun movement. And so by fun movement, I mean, first of all, and this goes back to the issue of recruitment, we have to entice boys to come to the program with movements that seem fun to them. And for me, at times, I was like, oh, this could reinforce hegemonic masculinity. I don't know. So, like, playing basketball, we'll play basketball, we'll play sports, because they really enjoy that. But it was an issue of making sure that the movement was something that kids wanted to do. Because so often, I noticed in these school settings, the movement of these children is constricted. It's very much about shut up and sit down, stop running, But once you kind of give them a little bit more rein as to the movement that they can do, I think that's the first step into having them engage with their bodies in a way that will allow them to challenge gender norms. So the reason I believe engaging with your body physically is important is because of this notion of embodiment. And as an author, Nick Crossley, defines it, it entails that the object, which is usually perceived as the body, and the subject, which is usually perceived as the mind, it entails that the object and the subject of perception, thought, feeling, desire, or action are the same. So it bridges this mind-body divide. So, and I believe that fun movement for kids, movement that they want to do, will help them bridge this mind-body divide because it takes away this objectification of the body that so often happens when your body is just an object to be manipulated. So when your body is just an object, it can be manipulated by other subjects. Mm. So when your body is just an object, well, I have to make sure that I'm still being read as male by everybody in this room, or that I'm doing what the teacher says, But once you allow them to have agency to their body and they get to choose